How did a well-known royal court painter become a hermit artist that terrified his audience with his work? Let's discuss while I make my own painting inspired by the chosen artist for today. Francisco Goya is quite the celebrated artist for both his royal court paintings and his terrifying demonic paintings. Coming from Zaragoza, he received his first interaction with the royal family in Madrid from creating painting designs that would be woven into tapestries for the royal residence. From there, Goya's reputation only rose when he was appointed a royal court painter who had later worked for 3 generations of Spanish kings. It's also worth noting that in between his work for the kings, he also worked for Joseph Bonaparte, the occupying French king at the time. By the time Goya reached his 40s, he was greatly respected, rich, and comfortable. However, that changed when his health went into a concerning decline. At the same time, a massive social and political upheaval was going through Spain. With such unrest going on in the country, he went through an unexpected shift of his own, and in his artwork too, which explored darker visuals and themes. When he was 46, an unknown illness took hold of him. He survived, but went completely deaf coming out of it. The loss of his hearing transformed his artwork, seeming to align more with personal visions and commentary on the path the Spanish society was taking. Works like Los Caprichos and the Disasters of Wars, a collection created in Goya's 50s and 60s, and some of his arguably most recognizable pieces, his black paintings, which he created in his 70s. These paintings were some of the most subversive he had created, and many made in secret while he was still an employee of the court at the time. When Napoleon invaded Spain in 1808, during the occupation, Goya stayed in Madrid working for the French. Initially, Goya and many of his liberal friends supported the French Revolution's aims, hoping it would lead Spain with enlightenment and liberalization. His opinion on the French did change after witnessing the violent subjugation and abuse of his people under the occupation. The atrocities of war affected him deeply and reflected emotionally in his work once again. In 1813, Napoleon was forced out of Spain, and King Ferdinand V returned and declared himself absolute monarch and threw Spain back into the hands of the Inquisition and the Middle Ages, the opposite of what the rest of Europe was moving to. It's worth recognizing that with all this rapid change happening, Goya became quite the political satirist, creating many works with the intentions of threatening the thinking of the superstitious, the unenlightened, prostitutes, peasants, and the Catholic Church, who at the time essentially had full control and censorship of almost every aspect of the Spanish people's information and daily life, especially what art was acceptable and what was not. At the age of 73, Goya moved away from the monarchist Madrid into a farmhouse on the countryside, living in basically isolation for the next 4 years. There he began his black painting period, which were never really intended to be seen by the public. I think it would be a disservice to say that he created these works from his deafness and his madness, but he had been deaf for almost more than a decade, and was quite mentally sane. Though, however, he did have the fear of going mad, which is why he turned to the canvas to cope. It deeply hurt Goya to see the country and the people he loves fall back into such dark times of distrust and unenlightened society. Paintings like The Witch's Sabbath were ones that decorated his farmhouse, La Quinquita de Sodoro. I can't say that. It holds many symbolism within it, poking fun at the closed-minded and the superstitious. Goya used the concept of witches to denounce the dehumanization of the people, and the seemingly satanic but priest-like goat at the center orchestrating the supposed Sabbath as satire, but in quite the graphic manner with all the deceased babies in the painting. Another painting, Witch's Flight, represented ignorance, stupidity, and blind superstition, symbolized through the donkey in the corner of the painting. The hats the witches were wearing as well were significant too. Carrozas, or known as caprites, were hats men and women wore when they were arrested by the Inquisition as a form of public humiliation, and were also worn during their public punishments. Many of the people were arrested for not being Catholic, or simply the accusation of not being a Catholic. Never were proven. But this painting in particular is suspected to carry sexual undertones alongside the cannibalistic visuals with the witches and the victim. I think in many ways, Goya's sinister paintings were somewhat of a warning to the society and the ruling power, of what could happen to the population when you decide to leave many of them behind, when you choose to be unwilling to new change, and if you blindly follow aggression, distrust, and ignorance. I had a lot of fun making this painting. It was inspired by one of the paintings I used in the example, The Witch's Sabbath, and I thought I wanted to take my own twist, incorporating both my own personal art style and some of the visuals that Goya carries in many of his works. I think as well I wanted to take a satirical approach to this painting as Goya did with many of his, where goat itself is not threatening. It's kind of just standing there menacingly.
He's just standing there, menacingly!
Many of Goya's paintings can be seen, in a modern light, since essentially he just wanted to scare the audience, scare those who wanted to follow the propaganda of the Catholic Church and the Inquisition. They were easily threatened by such a simple but yet powerful symbol in the painting. So I wanted to carry that in my own painting for this project. All in all, I had a lot of fun researching and reading up on Goya, and there's so much more I would love to say, but I feel like I covered the majority of what I wanted to speak on, and incorporated that in the process of my painting. I'd love to do this as well in oil, hopefully one day, because I feel like that would do a better service to Goya and his style. But yeah, thank you for listening.